The sky burned red over Zephyrria's last stronghold. Thunder rolled across jagged cliffs. Winds howled like lost spirits. Commander Zephwind stood on the highest ridge, his eyes fixed on the distant fires. Smoke twisted upward in thick black columns. The air smelled of burning metal and ash. Silence, broken only by crackling flames, filled the valley below. Zephwind's heart pounded with a heavy weight. Behind him, Aersek hurried through the command tent. Sweat dripped from his brow. His hands trembled as he adjusted the old transmitter. "It's the last chance," he muttered. The device hummed softly, a fragile beacon in the dark. Zephwind nodded without looking back. He felt the heavy burden of hope slipping away. The Zephyrian people had fought for centuries. Their world was once full of light and laughter. Now it was a memory, fading fast. The galaxy's deadliest hunter, the Xal'Rath, had come like a storm. They showed no mercy, no pause. Entire cities vanished overnight. Allies turned their backs. The Zephyrians stood alone. Suddenly, the transmitter crackled to life. Aersek's fingers danced over the controls. He sent out the final message, a call drifting through the void, a desperate plea for help. The signal carried the story of ruin and loss. It carried the faint hope of survival. The message reached deep space. It crossed borders no one dared cross. Meanwhile, Commander Alina Anderson sat on the bridge of the human ship Horizon. Stars streaked past the viewport. The silence of space pressed in from all sides. Her gaze locked on the blinking console. A strange signal had arrived. It pulsed with urgency and fear. Elena leaned forward. She listened to the strange sounds. The words were alien, but the emotion was clear. This was no ordinary message. This was a cry for aid from a lost world. She felt a chill run down her spine. The universe had whispered a warning. Back on Zephyria, Zephwind stared at the dark horizon. He saw no rescue in the night sky. Only the cold stars, indifferent and distant. His people huddled in caves below, their faces pale and tired. Children clung to mothers. Warriors sharpened broken blades. Every soul waited for what might come. The wind shifted suddenly, carrying the scent of smoke and fear. Zephwind closed his eyes. He imagined distant hands reaching out. Hands that might save them. Meanwhile, Aersek packed away the transmitter. The final message was sent. No one knew if it would be heard. No one knew if help would come. Suddenly, a distant rumble shook the ground. The Xal'Rath hunters closed in. Shadows lengthened like claws. Time was running out. Zephwind drew his sword. His mind raced with memories and regrets. He vowed to fight until his last breath. The Zephyrian sky darkened. Stars blinked out one by one. The last transmission floated through space. A promise of hope in a galaxy grown cold. Somewhere, in the vast silence, a new story was about to begin. The Zephyrian ship drifted silently through the cold void. Its smooth curves caught the faint glow of distant stars. Inside, Commander Zephwind stood by a large viewport. His eyes scanned the endless black. The weight of his people's fate pressed heavily on him. The air was thick with tension and quiet hums from the ship's systems. Zephwind's mind raced with questions. How did they lose so much ground? How did allies vanish when they needed help most? The silence outside matched the silence inside his heart. Meanwhile, in a small laboratory, Aersek the scientist worked feverishly. His hands moved swiftly, adjusting glass instruments and glowing screens. Data streams flowed like rivers of light. He sought answers in the cold logic of science. He searched for any clue that might turn the tide. Suddenly, a sharp alert broke the calm. Aersek's eyes snapped to a blinking console. The ship's sensors had picked up an incoming signal. The broadcast was not from any known source. It pulsed in a pattern, a steady rhythm that suggested intelligence. Zephwind hurried to the lab. His presence filled the room with quiet urgency. The signal's strange pattern gave him a flicker of hope. Could it be a friend? He studied the data with Aersek, their faces lit by the soft glow of screens. The signal translated into images and words. It spoke of strength hidden beneath an unassuming shell. It told of a species that others had dismissed as simple. Yet, that species held power beyond what the Zephyrians imagined. Zephwind's eyes widened. This was the first sign of help they had received in many dark cycles. The message detailed accounts of humans, a species that had once been overlooked. Humans survived harsh worlds with courage and tenacity. They fought and thrived despite odds. Aersek's voice echoed softly. This changes everything. He pointed to data showing human ships and weapons. The technology was rugged but effective. It was different from Zephyrian craft, less sleek, more practical. Zephwind gazed out the viewport again. The stars seemed colder, but now there was a spark of fire within him. Humans had no grand alliances or mighty fleets. Yet, they had survived. They had strength hidden beyond their quiet eyes. The ship's corridors felt lighter, as if the promise of aid warmed the steel and glass. Zephwind moved to the communication room. The message would be simple gratitude and a call for help. The Zephyrians had little left, but they offered hope. Meanwhile, on a human ship not far away, Commander Elena Anderson received the Zephyrian message. Her ship, the Endeavor, cruised through a belt of asteroids. The hum of engines and the chatter of crew filled the bridge. Elena studied the transmission carefully. She recognized the desperation behind the words. The Zephyrians were cornered, isolated. Humans had their own scars and battles. Yet, something in the plea touched her deeply. She felt the weight of history and the chance to change it. Brandon Carter, a young soldier, stood by her side. His hands were steady as he monitored the ship's systems. He had trained for encounters like this, but never expected to meet a species so noble and fallen. The story of the Zephyrians stirred something fierce inside him. Elena's voice broke the hum. "Prepare a response. We will offer what we can." Her words were firm but calm. This was no small decision. It could mean war or peace. It could mean salvation or destruction. Back on the Zephirian ship, Zephwind awaited the reply with a mix of hope and fear. Every moment stretched into eternity. The cold silence pressed in again. Then, a fresh pulse lit up the communication panel. The human message arrived. It was simple, clear, and kind. The humans promised to send aid. They did not seek glory or gain. They only offered friendship and strength. Zephwind felt a strange warmth in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. The Zephyrian crew gathered quietly. Some faces showed disbelief, others cautious joy. For the first time in many cycles, hope flickered in the deep shadows of their hearts. The galaxy was vast and dark, but they were not alone. Zephwind looked to Aersek. The scientist nodded slowly. Science and hope had met. Together they might rebuild what was lost. The message was more than a call for help. The humans had something the Zephyrians had forgotten: resilience born from struggle. Not just strength in weapons or numbers, but a strength rooted in spirit. The humans survived the harshest worlds. They fought when all odds said no. Zephwind took a deep breath. The cold metal beneath his palms felt less cold. Outside, stars blinked like watchful eyes. Somewhere out there, humans prepared to cross the void, to stand with a dying people. Suddenly, the ship's alarms sounded again. A warning blinked red. Enemies detected on the perimeter. The Zephyrians snapped to action. The moment of peace was brief. Danger still loomed like a dark cloud. Zephwind gave swift orders. The crew moved like a single living thing. But now their hearts beat with a new rhythm. Hope fueled their courage. The deadly hunters of the galaxy were closing in. Yet, Zephwind knew this time was different. Strength was coming from beyond the stars. The hunters might be fierce, but they had not met the humans. The Zephyrian ship launched into faster movement, weaving through asteroid fields. The hunters pursued, relentless and cold. Meanwhile, Zephwind's mind focused on one thing: survival. And the promise of belly rubs. An odd phrase from the human message, but one that made him smile despite the danger. In that small, strange moment, a bridge formed between two species. One hunted, one desperate, both reaching out across the dark. The galaxy held many secrets. One now shone bright with the light of hope. The deadliest hunter might soon find something gentler waiting. And that changed everything. The stars outside the viewport shimmered like scattered diamonds on black velvet. The bridge of the Zephyrian command ship hummed softly with quiet energy. Zephwind stood by the control panel, his eyes sharp and searching. The tension in the air felt thick, almost electric. An eerie calm settled over the crew. They had survived the initial attack. They had escaped the first wave. Yet a deeper dread gnawed at them. The enemy was clever, too clever. Their moves were precise, almost surgical. They didn't just want to win, they wanted to erase every trace of Zephirian life. Zephwind rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Something about the enemy's tactics felt different this time. It was as if they knew Zephirian strengths and weaknesses. They had anticipated every move the Zephyrians made. Meanwhile, Aersek, the alien scientist, analyzed the tactical data streaming in. The glowing holograms twisted and shifted above his console. The enemy's fleet adapted quickly to their maneuvers. Each attempt to break through met a wall of fire. The Zephyrians had expected brute force. What they faced was precision. The enemy struck at vital points. Supply lines disrupted, communication arrays disabled. They moved like shadows unseen until too late. Their attacks were surgical strikes, not chaotic bombardments. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. The ship shook violently. The enemy had found their location. Zephwind gripped the rail tightly. The battle was far from over. Outside, the void erupted in flashes of light. Enemy fighters darted through the debris field. They moved with deadly grace, weaving between shattered hulls. The Zephirian ship's shields flared as plasma bolts slammed against them. Sparks rained inside. The crew scrambled to their stations. Each hand knew its duty. Aersek's fingers flew over his console. He calculated countermeasures. The ship's engines roared to life, trying to outmaneuver the attackers. Zephwind's voice cut through the chaos. Focus on evasion. We need to buy time. His command was steady, but inside, he felt the weight of despair. The enemy fighters broke formation. A group veered toward the engine room. Zephwind's stomach twisted. If they damaged the engines, escape would be impossible. The ship lurched as explosions rocked the lower decks. Smoke filled the corridors. The smell of burning circuits and scorched metal crept into the bridge vents. Zephwind clenched his fists. Aersek's console beeped urgently. "Commander, I've found a pattern," he said without looking up. "Their attacks follow a rhythm. They exploit predictable Zephirian tactics." Zephwind nodded slowly. "Then we changed the rhythm. We surprised them instead." The crew adjusted their strategy. They shifted course sharply, confusing enemy sensors. The ship flashed through the stars, dodging blasts like a dancer weaving through fire. Suddenly, they fired a counterstrike. Zephirian plasma cannons blazed, cutting through the enemy formation. Fighters erupted in brilliant explosions. The bridge filled with cheers, brief but fierce. However, the enemy regrouped quickly. Their response was brutal. New ships appeared, larger and more heavily armed. The Zephirians faced overwhelming odds again. Zephwind's mind raced. The enemy's tactics were precise because they studied Zephirian behavior deeply. They knew Zephirians valued honor and predictable patterns. They used that knowledge against them. He realized they needed an unpredictable move, something the enemy wouldn't expect. Meanwhile, Aersek proposed an idea. "We can alter our ship's energy signature. It might confuse their targeting systems." Zephwind agreed immediately. The crew worked feverishly. They rerouted power, adjusted shields, and scrambled sensors. The room buzzed with renewed energy and hope. The enemy fired again. This time, their weapons missed more often. The Zephirian ship slipped through the attacks like a ghost. The crew's confidence grew. Suddenly, Zephwind made a bold decision. "Prepare a stealth approach. We will strike their command ship directly." His voice was calm but firm. "If we cripple their leadership, the rest will falter." The plan was risky. The enemy controlled vast space. The Zephyrians had only a small chance. But they had no choice. Survival demanded courage. The ship dimmed its lights. Silent engines glided through the void. Sensors scanned ahead. Enemy ships patrolled, but gaps appeared in their formation. Zephwind's heart pounded as they neared the target. The command ship loomed large on the screens. Its design was alien and menacing. Bright lights flickered along its hull. They launched a surprise attack. Plasma bolts arced through space, striking the enemy's shields. The command ship shuddered. Systems sparked and failed. Inside, chaos erupted. The enemy scrambled to respond. But the Zephyrians pressed their advantage. Their precision had become their strength. Their attacks were swift and focused. Suddenly, the command ship's weapons went silent, its shields flickered and died. Zephwind allowed himself a brief smile. The tide was turning. The Zephyrians boarded the enemy's ship. They moved like shadows, silent and deadly. They disabled systems, captured data, and planted charges. Every step was cautious but determined. Meanwhile, Zephwind reflected on their journey. They had faced death and abandonment. Yet they fought with a spirit no enemy could break. Their unity was their strength. The charges detonated, shaking the ship violently. Fires erupted in corridors. The command ship began to fall apart. The enemy's will shattered along with it. Zephwind and crew returned to their ship. The void outside was quieter now. The enemy fleet scattered, their coordination lost. The Zephyrians had delivered a decisive blow. The bridge filled with exhausted but proud faces. They had learned from defeat. They had survived against impossible odds. Zephwind looked out at the stars once more. The galaxy still held dangers. But now he knew something crucial. Even in the darkest times, hope could shine through. And sometimes, the deadliest hunter could ask for belly rubs. The stars outside glimmered cold and distant. The hum of the ship's engines filled the quiet air. Elena sat by the viewport, watching the endless dark. Her mind replayed everything she had learned about the Zephyrians. They were a proud race, built for battle and survival. Yet, somehow, they asked for help with belly rubs. It was a strange, soft request from a hard, fierce species. Elena wondered how such a fierce hunter could seek comfort in such a gentle way. Meanwhile, Zephwind paced the command room. His long limbs moved with restless energy. His sharp eyes held a deep sadness that no one saw at first glance. The hunter's reputation said he was ruthless. Yet here he was vulnerable in a way no one expected. Aersek, the scientist, observed quietly. His scales shimmered faintly in the dim light. He understood more than anyone the weight Zephwind carried. The ancient scars on the hunter's body told stories of battles won and friends lost. Those scars were more than physical. They were reminders of pain and loneliness. Suddenly, the ship's communication panel beeped sharply. Elena snapped to attention. The signal was faint but clear. It was a message not from Zephyrians, but from somewhere deeper in space. She tapped the screen. The message glowed softly. It held a simple phrase, "Compassion is strength." Elena's heart quickened. That phrase fit the mystery of the Zephyrians perfectly. It was a key to something bigger than war. The command room filled with a strange warmth. Not from the ship's heaters, but from the idea itself. Compassion, she realized, could be their secret weapon. It was a power no one had expected. A power that could change everything. Elena stood and looked down at Zephwind. The hunter's eyes met hers. They were not filled with anger or fear. Instead, a new trust began to build, fragile but real. A trust rooted in the hope that kindness could heal even the deepest wounds. Outside, the ship drifted through a quiet nebula, clouds of gas glowing faint blue and green. The colors painted the hull with soft light. It was a calm place, far from the chaos of war. The nebula seemed to breathe peace into the tense crew. Elena walked to the small observation deck. She felt the weight of what they faced. The galaxy was a harsh place. Yet, here was a chance to rewrite the story. The Zephyrians had shown her the way. Through their unexpected plea for softness, the hunter's story unfolded in her mind. Once a fierce warrior, Zephwind had lost more than most. His people abandoned him. Yet he did not give up. Instead, he reached out with a simple, humble request. A request for connection. Meanwhile, Aersek worked quietly at his console. His fingers danced over the controls, analyzing data from the Zephirian homeworld. The devastation there was worse than anyone had imagined. The silence of the planet echoed through the ship like a ghost. But then, in the midst of that silence, a pulse of life rose. Small signals, faint and scattered. It was as if the planet still held sparks of hope. The Zephyrian's spirit was not fully broken. It lingered, waiting for a spark to ignite it once more. Alena felt a sudden urge to reach out, not with weapons or threats, but with kindness and understanding. She imagined what it would be like to be in Zephwind's place, alone, hunted, desperate. That thought filled her with a fierce determination. The ship's lights dimmed as night settled on their side of the galaxy. Outside, stars blinked like distant eyes watching their journey unfold. Alena sat once more by the window, feeling the pulse of the universe around her. The universe was vast, but not heartless. Suddenly, Zephwind appeared beside her. His massive form seemed less threatening in the soft glow of the stars. He looked out silently, sharing the moment. No words were needed. Their shared silence spoke volumes about trust and hope. Alena reached out tentatively. Her hand hovered near his armored chest. Slowly, she placed her palm there. The metal was cold but alive with energy. Zephwind's breathing slowed. The tension in his frame eased. She whispered, "What can change this?" The words felt small but carried the weight of a promise. A promise to fight not just with weapons, but with the power of compassion. Outside, the ship moved closer to the Zephyrian homeworld. The planet's surface came into view, scarred but still stunning. Rivers flowed through cracked landscapes. Forests struggled to regrow amid ruins. Life fought back against destruction. Alena imagined the Zephyrians returning to these lands, not as hunters or warriors, but as survivors. They would rebuild with the strength of their hearts. The galaxy might have forgotten them. Meanwhile, the crew prepared for the next step. Supplies were checked, medical teams readied. The plan was simple but bold. They would land, offer help, and show a new way forward. Not through force, but through care. Aersek approached Alena with a small device. It emitted a soft blue glow. "This will help," he said silently. It translated emotions into simple signals. It could bridge the gap between species and heal old wounds. Alena nodded, feeling the gravity of the moment. The galaxy was watching. Lives depended on their next moves. Yet, she felt no fear. Hope born from the third revelation, the power of compassion. The ship's engines hummed steadily as they entered orbit. The stars above seemed to shine brighter. It was as if the universe itself approved their mission. Alena breathed deeply and prepared to lead the way. The power of compassion was not just a phrase. It was a force that could save worlds. It could turn hunters into friends. It could stop genocide and build new futures. And that was a future worth fighting for. The stars outside the viewport blinked cold and distant. The dark silence of space stretched on forever. Yet inside the bridge, tension crackled like static in the air. Alena's fingers hovered over the controls. Her breath stayed shallow, almost caught. The Zephyrian ship loomed ahead, vast and silent, like a sleeping giant. It should be a monster, dangerous and deadly. Instead, it was still. Suddenly, the Zephyrian vessel shifted. Its hull brightened with soft blue light. A gentle hum filled the room, low and steady. It was not a warship's noise, but something almost soothing. Alena blinked, surprised. This was no ordinary encounter. Meanwhile, Zephwind stood at the bow of his ship. He looked out at the approaching human fleet, not from fear, but hoped. The long nightmare might finally end. The hunters had become the hunted, but something inside him urged calm. A signal, clear and simple, sent out to the humans. The message was not a threat. It was an invitation. A single image flickered on their screens. Zephwind's face, not fierce or stern, but calm and open. His eyes met Alena's through the void. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. The humans responded slowly. Their weapons remained ready, but their energy shifted. Brandon Carter watched Zephwind's ship carefully. The message was strange. Could a killer species really want peace? Maybe the galaxy's deadliest hunter was tired. Or maybe they just wanted something simple. Meanwhile, Zephwind lowered his weapon systems. The massive claws that had once torn through enemies now rested gently at his sides. The ship's lights dimmed further, bathing the bridge in a cool glow. A pulse of calm spread through the Zephirian crew. Suddenly, Alena made a decision. She ordered the fleet to lower their shields. The tension in the bridge eased. A soft vibration hummed through the ship's frame. Elena felt it in her bones. Something was changing. The Zephyrian ship opened a hatch. A ramp extended down into space like a giant tongue unrolling. Slowly, Zephwind stepped forward. His massive form moved with careful grace. He carried no weapon. Instead, his hands were open, inviting. Brandon watched, breath held. Zephwind's scales shimmered under the distant starlight. His eyes, sharp and golden, looked curious. And then, unexpectedly, a low rumble came from him. It was more like a purr. The sound was strange, even beautiful. It filled the silence with warmth. The deadliest hunter was purring. Nobody could explain it, yet the feeling was clear. The ramp touched down on Elena's ship. Zephwind's heavy footsteps echoed softly. He came closer, slower now. Elena stepped forward. Her heart raced, but her voice was steady. She reached out, trembling. Her hand met his smooth, tough skin. Suddenly, Zephwind rolled onto his back. His large belly lay open under the stars. The gesture was clear. He wanted belly rubs. Laughter bubbled up from Brandon and the crew. The tension shattered like glass. Elena smiled, heart lightened. The galaxy's deadliest hunter was asking for a simple kindness. A moment of peace in a violent universe. Elena's hand moved slowly. She stroked Zephwind's belly. The hunter's purr grew louder, more joyful. It was a sound no one expected to hear. Yet it filled the bridge with warmth. The others joined in, gentle hands reaching out. Meanwhile, Zephwind's crew watched from their stations. Their fierce faces softened. They had never seen this before. The humans were not enemies this day. Suddenly, alarms blared. The peace shattered for a moment. A warning flashed on the screen. An unknown ship approached fast. The moment of calm was fragile. Elena's fingers tightened on the controls. She stood tall, ready to defend. But Zephwind rose too. His eyes burned bright. The hunter was ready to protect his new friends. The two sides moved as one. Humans and Zephyrians worked together. Their combined strength pushed back the threat. The danger passed, leaving silence behind. Breath caught in their chests, they looked at each other again. The unspoken truth hung in the air. The hunter had chosen peace, and the humans had answered. Zephwind's purr returned soft and steady. It was no longer just a sound, a sign that even the deadliest can learn to trust. Even the fiercest can ask for kindness. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. The galaxy was vast and cold. But here, in this moment, something bright had bloomed. A chance to rewrite the story. The stars outside twinkled, no longer distant. They seemed to lean closer, watching this new beginning. And somewhere deep inside, both hunter and human knew. This was the start of something powerful, something bigger than war. A bond born not from weapons or fear, but from a simple, gentle touch. The deadliest hunter had asked for belly rubs, and the galaxy would never be the same. The empty stars stretched beyond the viewport. Zephwind stood silently on the bridge of the human ship. The quiet hum of engines filled the air. Around him, humans moved with steady purpose. Their faces showed hope and determination. The Zephirian commander felt something new, comfort in this strange alliance. Outside, the galaxy no longer felt cold or hostile. The dead silence of space softened. Elena's crew worked to repair the damaged Zephirian vessels. Sparks flew as systems rebooted. Meanwhile, warm lights flickered on consoles. The quiet chatter between humans and Zephirians grew. Suddenly, a soft chime echoed through the ship. Aersek appeared, holding a small device. The scientist's eyes shone with relief. "The Zephirian fleet is stable," she announced. "We can rebuild now." Zephwind nodded slowly. Hope took root deep inside him. The smell of metal and oil mixed with something new. It was the faint scent of flowers from the ship's garden. Elena had insisted on bringing life on board. Green leaves brushed against the cold steel. The plants swayed slightly in the recycled air. It was a reminder life could grow anywhere. Zephwind remembered the first message sent to Earth. It was a desperate cry for help. At that moment, he had no idea anyone would answer. Humans and Zephyrians side by side. It felt like a new dawn for both species. Brandon Carter wiped sweat from his brow. He looked out the window at the stars. "We did more than save a species today," he thought. "We made allies. real friends. The weight of the galaxy's dangers still hung in the air, yet the burden felt lighter with company. Outside the ship, the Zephyrian fleet began to move. Their engines hummed back to life. Ships glided like silent ghosts through space. Each vessel carried survivors, memories, and hope. The scars of war were fresh, but healing had begun. Alina walked to Zephwin's side. Her voice was calm but firm. "We will protect you," she said. "Together, we are stronger." Zephwind looked into her eyes. He found trust there, a promise unspoken but deeply understood. They planned their next steps carefully. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns. However, they no longer faced it alone. Resources, knowledge, and courage combined. Bridges built from kindness and courage spanned the stars. Inside the ship's mess hall, laughter broke the tense silence. Humans and Zephyrians shared stories. They swapped food and jokes. The alien language sounded strange but friendly. Bonds formed quietly in these small moments. The lights dimmed to a soft glow. Outside, distant stars twinkled like tiny beacons. Zephwind breathed deeply. The weight on his shoulders lifted. He felt a spark of something long lost, hope. Suddenly alarms blared. But it was only a test drill. Relief washed over the crew. The drill reminded them to stay ready. Danger still lurked beyond the horizon. Meanwhile, Aersek checked the ship's systems. "Repairs are holding," she reported. "Fuel levels are good." The scientist smiled thinly. This was only the beginning, but progress mattered. Zephwind gazed out at the stars again. He thought about his home planet. Zephyria had been beautiful. Green forests, clear rivers, blue skies. Now it was a memory. Yet a new home was forming here among the stars, with new friends. The ship's engines hummed steadily. The crew prepared for the journey ahead. They would seek allies, explore new worlds, and rebuild what was lost. Their path was uncertain but bright. Elena's voice came over the comms. "All units, prepare to jump to the next system." The crew moved swiftly. Zephwind braced for the jump. The stars stretched and blurred. Then silence and the calm of new space. The galaxy was waking up to something new, a chance for peace born from desperation. Zephwind felt a quiet pride. They had survived the darkest hour. Now they would thrive in the light. The ship glided forward. Steady and sure, new friendships blossomed in the cold void. The deadliest hunter had found a new purpose. Not to destroy, but to protect and cherish. Hope was no longer a fragile spark. It was a steady flame. Burning bright in the vast night, the galaxy's future was uncertain. But together they would face it. And so, the story continued. A tale of survival, trust, and unity. When the galaxy's deadliest hunter asked for belly rubs, it found something greater: family.